All right, for this part of chapter 10, we're going to talk about how to graph parabolas in this form, y equals ax squared, so there's nothing being added to it. Now in this form, the vertex is always going to be 0, 0. All right, so that's when they get more involved, we're going to talk about how to find the vertex. It'll be our first step. But for this, the first part of this, it's at 0, 0, so that's easy to remember. So we're always going to plot the vertex, then we're going to make a table of values, and we're going to substitute numbers in for x, get an output for y. So you're just going to be plugging stuff in your calculators, plotting points. And then one way we can do is we can reflect it across the axis of symmetry, or we can pick points to either the left or the right of the vertex, meaning a negative number, a positive number. But I'm going to show you both ways. So like we mentioned here, the vertex is 0, 0, and that makes sense because when we make a table of values and we substitute a 0 in for x, if I put a 0 in for this x, negative 2, or 0 squared is 0 times negative 2 would also be 0. So that's going to be one of the points of our graph. Now, if you remember from the previous lessons, because this a is negative, we know it's going to be opening down. All right, so let's just see if our when we put other numbers in for x, that it goes in that direction. So one number I might pick to put in could be x equals 1, 2, anything to the right of the vertex. So I'm going to just start with 1. That's an easy number. So I'm going to substitute 1 in for that x. Now remember, when you are doing your math, when you're putting that in your calculator, I always like to put in numbers in parentheses when I substitute. So this is going to look like this. Negative 2 times 1 squared. All right. If we then do order of operations, again, if you plug it directly into your calculator like it looks, it'll do order of operations for you. But 1 squared is 1, so negative 2 times 1, and then negative 2 times 1 is negative 2. So negative 2 would be my output. So I can go ahead and plot this ordered pair onto my graph. So when x is 1, and we have a negative 2. Now, from our axis of symmetry, all right, we know our axis of symmetry is right here because this is our vertex. We could just reflect that across the axis of symmetry. So if I fold this in half, directly across from that equal distance would be right there. All right. So my value for x across the axis of symmetry, if x is negative 1, then my y value should also be negative 2. All right, let's put that in to see if that works. So it's negative 2, parentheses, negative 1 squared. Negative 1 times negative 1, so basically negative 1 squared is just 1. Negative 2 times 1 is negative 2. All right, so after you have, basically all you need are the vertex and 2 other points. We could do another point if we wanted to. We could say, hey, what is it when x equals 2? So I can plug in negative 2 times 2 squared. 2 squared is 4 times negative 2. Negative 2 times 4 would be negative 8. So negative 8 could be another point that I could put on there. So at positive 2, I go down 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and I put a dot there. Now, if you don't want to go back through and do the math, you can just reflect that across the axis of symmetry. So I went 2 across here, 2 across here, and I know that would be another point that would fall on the graph because this y is our axis of symmetry. From here, all you have to do is draw the U-shaped graph. So you kind of go through the dots and around. As long as the points are labeled and I see there's a good effort to make a U-shaped graph, then that's all you would need to do. All right, let's go ahead and try another one. So here we have y equals 4x squared. All right, so if you don't have graphing paper or anything, we can just draw a graph. So we'll just draw our x and y coordinate. Remember, this is the y, this is the x. Now, analyzing this, you notice that this is positive. So our graph should be facing upwards. Whereas before, if it was negative, it was going down. Remember, that just tells us which direction it's going if it's positive or negative. And remember from the previous episode, this is a bigger number. It's not a decimal or anything, so it should be a little bit narrower rather than wider. but if it's still the same process regardless how we go. So we know that our vertex is going to be at 0, 0. So I'm going to put a dot there. Again, if I put 0 in for x, 0 squared is 0 times 4 would be 0 as well. So again, you have to pick up numbers here for x that you'd want to use. All right, 1's always a good one, so I'm going to use positive 1. Plug that in. 4 times 1 squared, plug that into your calculator. 1 squared times 4 equals 4. So one other point on this that I'm going to put in is when x equals 1, y equals 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I put a dot there. All right. Now, if I used negative 1 as one of my points, I always like to do 1 point to the right, 1 point to the left of the vertex. So positive 1 is to the right, negative 1 would be to the left, but because of our axis of symmetry, I don't even have to do the math. I can just know that if I put in negative 1, my output is also going to be 4. So really, that's all you need to do for these, and then you draw your U-shaped graph. Remember, this is not a V, it's got a curve to it, but as long as it's close, you kind of get the idea. So regardless of what this A is, for these examples, you're going to be starting at the origin, pick maybe 1, negative 1, whatever, reflect it over the x-axis, and just draw your graph. All right, so going back to the notes, on the next part, what we have is where there is a whole number at the end. So there's, in a quadratic, we have y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. So in this case, essentially your b is gone, it equals 0. So we just have the whole number at the end. What that does when we're reading graphs, all it does is it shifts the graph either up or down on that y-axis. So in a sense, our vertex is going to be either shifting up or down however many units c is. So if it's positive, it's going up on the graph. If it's negative, it's going down on the graph. All right, so these would be two graphs. This is our standard form. So if we plot our axis or our vertex right in the middle, 0, 0, I'll do a quick ordered pair so you can see it. So when x equals 1, 1 squared is 1. If x equals 2, 2 squared is 4. So I can say 1, 1 is another point. 2, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. There's another point. So that's this side of the graph. Now remember our axis of symmetry is there, so it's equal distance on the other side. So if I do negative 1, it's still going to be 1 as my output. If I do negative 2, it's still going to be 4. Oops, 4 is my output. I was over 1 there. So I would be here, negative 2 in there. So 4 would be there because negative 2 squared. Again, use parentheses in your calculator because it's going to look like this. If you don't put that parentheses in there, it's going to come out all messed up. So we do that, and we can draw our U-shaped graph through that. So now let's look at what this graph is going to look like. All right, so now our origin, or I mean our vertex is going to be shifted down 4 units. So I'm actually going to go down 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm going to put a dot there. Now if I'm going to do my x and y axis, you'll see why this works. When x equals 0, 0 squared minus 4, so 0 minus 4 is negative 4. So that is my vertex. All right, now I got to pick points to the right, points to the left, because I want to make sure I can draw that U-shaped graph. So I can pick 1, I'll pick 2 here. I'm going to go with 2 just to give it a little more space. All right, so I'm going to put 2 in here. So I have substitute 2 in for x. So 2 squared minus 4. So again, you could type this right into your calculator if you want. I'm going to do the order of operations. 2 squared is 4 minus 4, and 4 minus 4 is 0. So when I put in 2 for x, I get 0 for y, so I can put it right there. Now remember your axis of symmetry. We can go equal distance away from the axis of symmetry here. So if I went 2 units this way and I know this is my axis of symmetry, I can go 2 here as well. All right, and then I just draw my U-shaped graph through that. It matches up, A is positive, so it's going up here. So that's how you would graph these types of parabolas. So again, over here, if I was going to mark this, when x is negative 2, y also equals 0 here. See, negative 2, y is 0, negative 2 squared minus 4, negative 2 squared is 4, minus 4 still equals 0. All right, let's practice a couple more problems when we have that. So here we go. We got 2 problems here. I'm going to go ahead and draw my graph. This is a positive 2, so it's actually going to start up 2 units. That's going to be my vertex. Notice this is negative, so we should be opening down. I'll make a little t-chart here, x and y. When x is 0, negative 0 squared is 0 plus 2. We get 2 there. So I'm going to pick 1 to the right, 1 to the left. Let's go ahead and go with 1. So if I put 1 in for x, so here's where putting in parentheses is important. So I have negative 1 squared plus 2. You type that into your calculator. 1 squared is 1. The negative version of that would be 1 plus 2. Negative 1 plus 2 would be 1. So 1, 1 would be one of mine. I reflect that over the x-axis. So negative 1, 1 would be another one of those problems that you could do. And we draw the graph going down. All right, so if you see here, it was shifted up 2. It's opening down. We got a couple other points on the graph. We're good there. So let's go ahead and try this one. So this one is going to be up starting at positive 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Because my t-chart here, I'm going to use x and y. So when x is 0, right? 0 squared is 0 times 3 plus 4. It's 4. Now let's pick another number. So again, 1 to the right of 0, 1 to the left. Let's do 1 again. It's an easy one, right? 3 times 1 squared plus 4. So remember, I'm just putting these numbers that I picked randomly into this problem. 1 squared is 1 times 3. 3 plus 4. 3 plus 4 is 7. So my output is 7 here. And again, from here, you can just type this into your calculator. So at x equals 1, y equals 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Put a dot there. If we know our axis of symmetry and that rule, how it can be reflected over that axis, at negative 1, I'm still going to get 7. So at negative 1, 7 here. And you draw your graph like so. All right, so there will be some practice problems with that, but essentially we're plotting the vertex, then we're making a table of values. You're picking your numbers for x. You can pick whatever you want. I would advise picking smaller numbers just so they're not way off the graph. Once you pick one, reflect that point over the axis of symmetry, put another dot, and draw your U.